Hare Krishna everyone. Welcome to the class. So we'll start with the prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya
Narayanam Namaskritya
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Naram Chaiva
Uttamam
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
Devim
Devim
Saraswatim
Saraswatim
Vyasam
Vyasam
Tato Jayam Udirayet
Tato
Tato
Jayam
Jayam Udire
Udire
Srinvatam Swakatah Krishna
Shranvatam Swakatha Krishna
Yashravana Kirtana
Punya Shravana Kirtana
Nityantasto Hyavadrani
Hridayantastho he avadrani
Vidhunoti Sahrit Satam
vidhunati suhurtsatam
Ashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu
nashtaprayeshu avetreshu
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
nityam bhagavata sevaya
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
bhagavati loke
Bhaktir Bhavati Nayishtiki
bhakti bhavati
Bhakti Naishtaki
Krishnaya Vasudevaya
krishnaya vasudevaya
Nandaya cha
Devaki Nandanaya Cha
Nanda Kumaraya
Nanda Gopa Kumaraya
Govindaya Namo Namaha.
govindaya namo.
So I'll not repeat everything because I summarized every last week. So right now we are in the chapter 5. So chapter 5 is Narada's instructions on Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam for Vyāsadeva. So Vyāsadeva was despondent, and after composing all the Vedic literature, he was despondent when he compiled Vedanta Sutras, also the conclusive teachings of Vedas. But still he was despondent, and at that time his spiritual master Narada Muni comes at his at where he was staying, and he inquires as to the reason for the despondency of Vyāsadeva. After inquiry, Vyāsadeva explains the situation, and Narada immediately starts describing about the missing piece in his compositions, which is the glorification of Lord and the pastimes of the Lord. So those are the things that were missing in composition. Even though he kept the message of glorification of the Lord, it is not very clear from the it is not very clearly evident for anybody who follows the message. So he wanted Vyasadeva to compose exclusively on the glorification of Lord's pastimes. So he explained futility of any other thing other than pure devotion service. So he explained about that, and then Narada Muni further explains about his previous life. He wanted to show with an example the potency of bhakti through his own life's example. So Narada Muni was in his past life the son of a maid servant in the ashram of great Bhakti Vedantas, and she was serving there, cooking them and helping in everything. So the Bhakti Vedantas, once during the rainy season, they stayed back in the ashram for an extended duration, at which time both Narada Muni and his wife and his mother, both of them helped facilitate their stay by cooking and arranging for everything for them. So this is where we stopped. Let's now open the book. So we learn about the characteristics of Narada Muni that make him eligible to become so pure right away, just in the association of Vedantas. So these are in Narada Muni's words. So he says, I was very much attached to those sages. I was gentle in behavior, and all my sins were eradicated in their service. So in my heart, I had strong faith in them. I had subjugated the senses, and I was strictly following them with body and mind. So these are the characteristics of an ideal disciple. First thing is, he was gentle in behavior. So the gentleness in behavior basically is Vaishnava quality. And then his sins were eradicated in the service of the Bhakti Vedantas, which means he, just by serving with full faith, advanced pure devotees, one gets eliminated of all the sins. And in my heart, I had strong faith in them. So one should have very strong faith in the advanced devotees in the process of bhakti. Right? So there are so many qualities we see here. And I had subjugated the senses, and I was strictly following them with body and mind. So Kaya, Manasa, Vacha, he was just following the Bhakti Vedantas. Even though he was a very young boy, he had Vaishnava character, he was serving the devotees, had strong faith, and he followed the instructions with his body and mind. So these characteristics elevate his consciousness immediately. So we studied this one last week. Yeah, let's do this. Now by being pleased with his service, immediately the Bhakti Vedantas bless him. They are merciful towards him. So that is this verse. So you can all repeat after me. You can unmute and repeat. Jnanam guhya tamam yatta
Jnanam guhyatamam
sakshat bhagavatoditam
Bhagavatam
anvavochan gamishantaha
Anvavochan Gamishantaha
kripaya dina vatsala.
Kripayadina Vatsala.
Yeah, please read.
As they were living, those Bhakti Vedantas, who were very kind to poor-hearted souls, instructed me in that most confidential subject, which is instructed by personality of Godhead himself.
So those Bhakti Vedantas, they gave Jnanam Guhyatamam. Guhyatamam means very, very confidential. Jnanam means knowledge of the soul. Guhyatamam, special confidential knowledge as revealed in the central chapters of Bhagavad Gita, 7th, 8th, 9th. So that is confidential knowledge about Bhakti. As given by Lord, right? It was mentioned, as instructed by the personality of Godhead. Most confidential subject. So that is actually Bhakti. So the Bhakti Vedantas, before they left, they basically instructed Narada Muni about the confidential instructions of Bhakti Yoga. Please continue, Prabhu.
The impersonalist who has no idea of transcendental form of the Lord cannot understand this most confidential message of the Lord. The expression most confidential is a significant here because knowledge of devotional service is far, far above knowledge of impersonal Brahman. Jnanam means ordinary knowledge or any branch of knowledge. This knowledge develops up to the knowledge of impersonal Brahman. Above this, when it is partially mixed with devotion, such knowledge develops to knowledge of Paramatma or all-pervading Godhead.
Yeah, please read.
This is more confidential But when such knowledge is turned into a pure devotional service and the confidential part of the transcendental knowledge is attained, it is called most confidential knowledge. The most confidential knowledge was imparted by the Lord to Brahma, Arjun, Uddhava, etc.
Yeah, so that's why Bhakti Yoga is considered the most confidential knowledge because it reveals the personality of Godhead. The three levels of realization is described here. Yenaivaham bhagavato
Yenaivam
Bhagavato
vasudevasya vedasaha
Vasudevasya Vedasaha
mayanubhavam avidam
Mayanubhavam Avidam
yena gachanti tatpadam.
Yena Gachanti Tatpadam.
Yeah, please read.
By that confidential knowledge, I could understand clearly the influence of the energy of Lord Sri Krishna, the creator, maintainer, and annihilator of everything. By knowing that, one can return to him and personally meet him.
So he could understand the path of perfection. Like he understands that everything is coming from Lord Krishna, and he is the maintainer, creator, and annihilator. He understands that, and by knowing that, one can return to him and personally meet him. Yena gachanti tatpadam. So this is the realization he gets. Continue, Prabhu.
By devotional service or by the most confidential knowledge, one can understand very easily how the different energies of the Lord are working. One part of his energy is manifesting the material world, the other superior part of his energy is manifesting the spiritual world, and his intermediate energy is manifesting the living entities who are serving either of the above mentioned energies. The living entities serving material energy are struggling hard for existence and happiness, which is presented to them as illusion. But those are in the spiritual energy are placed under the direct service of the Lord in eternal life, complete knowledge, and perpetual bliss. The Lord desires, as he has directly said in the Bhagavad Gita, that all conditional souls rotting in the kingdom of material energy come back to him by giving up all the engagements in the material world. This is the most confidential part of the knowledge.
This is the desire of the Lord, that every conditioned soul come to the spiritual world. And only by devotion service, one can understand very easily how different energies of Lord are working. In no other path one can understand. It's like, for example, I gave this example before. If you have a glass of milk, you can try learning about it with all the senses, right? With your eyes, you can only see the color of the milk, right? With touch, you will know whether it is hot or cold. And with your ears, you can hear about the characteristics and benefits of milk. But all the benefits are available when you just drink the milk, right? You will also get the energy of the milk. So bhakti is like that. Jnana and yoga, other paths, are like the side process that give only partial understanding of the absolute truth. That's why it's considered the most confidential knowledge. Etat samuchitam brahmams
Etat samuchitam
Brahman
tapatraya chikitsitam Yadishware Bhagavati
Yadishware Bhagavati
Karma Brahmani Bhavitam.
Brahma Brahmani Bhavitam.
Yeah, please read.
O Brahmana, Vyāsadeva, it is decided by the learned that the best remedial measure for removing all troubles and miseries is to dedicate one's activities to the service of the Supreme Lord, Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna.
This is the conclusive instruction. Remedial measure for removing all troubles and miseries is to dedicate one's activities to the service of the Supreme Lord. So far, the description was about his personal journey of in bhakti. Now he talks about further instructions. These are instructions from 32 to 40. instructions on how one should perform work and what is the path of perfection. Right? So his conclusive understanding is remedial measure for removing all miseries and troubles is to dedicate one's activities to the service of the Supreme. So any activity one performs, the ultimate beneficiary is Lord Krishna. That should be the understanding with any activity we perform, whether it's cooking or working for somebody, anything we do, donation or anything we do, understand it should be done as service to the Supreme Lord. If it is done, that is the way to get out of miseries of this material world. Continue.
Sri Narada Muni personally experienced that the most feasible and practical way to open the path of salvation or get relief from all miseries of life is to hear submissively the transcendental activities of the Lord from the right and bona fide sources. This is the only remedial process. The entire material existence is full of miseries. Foolish people have manufactured out of their tiny brains many remedial measures for removing the threefold miseries pertaining to the body and mind, pertaining to the natural disturbances, and in relation with other living beings.
Yeah. Basically, any other measures don't really solve the troubles and miseries of material existence. There is only one path, which is, hearing and glorifying the activities of the Lord.
It does not matter what one is. One must dedicate everything in the service of the Lord. If one is a learned scholar, scientist, philosopher, poet, etc., then he should employ his learning to establish the supremacy of the Lord. Try to study the energy of the Lord in every sphere of life. Do not decry him and try to become like him or take his position simply by fragmental accumulation of knowledge. If one is an administrator, statesman, warrior, politician, etc., then one should try to establish the Lord's supremacy in statesmanship.
So very simple. Any abilities that God has given us, the only purpose of them is to use them in the service of the Lord. That is how, if one leverages, then he will achieve perfection. Whatever abilities one has, they should be employed only for the satisfaction of the Lord.
The best thing is, after all, to get relief from all material activities and engage oneself completely in hearing the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. But in case of the absence of such an opportunity, one should try to engage in the service of the Lord, everything for which one has specific attraction, and that is the way of peace and prosperity.
If we can just sit down and hear and forget about everything else, that is the best, it seems. But if you don't, okay, you have attraction for things of this world, now use them in the service of the Lord, right? Use so that your senses are engaged in the service of the Lord still. That is the way of peace and prosperity. This is the peace formula. So real happiness comes through this way. Okay? Any other way, you may temporarily have some peace and prosperity, but it won't be lasting very long. You may artificially have, for example, when Hiranyakashipu was ruling the world, even then there is prosperity in the world, but unfortunately it's very short-lived. But when Yudhishthira Maharaj was ruling, it was long-standing prosperity and peace. Everybody was happy. When Hiranyakashipu was doing rulership, he has partiality for certain people. Many people were not really happy, even though externally everybody is prosperous. Internally, a lot of people are miserable because he would obstruct sacrifices. I'm just trying to compare. So only real prosperity and peace is possible only when engaging in the service of the Lord. Any other means may stay temporarily, may temporarily show some peace and prosperity, but it's not really gives the satisfaction to the heart. It could be just external show. For example, in the America, right, the United States, relatively material happiness is there, but it's short-lived. It's not really long-standing. Right? and a lot of people are still mentally suffering. Externally, maybe they may have prosperity and basic needs, but internally, a lot of people are depressed and not really peaceful. Only it is possible when there is direct engagement in the service of the Lord.
Prabhu?
Yeah.
So if people ask like what Shri Ravi Shankar does or yoga or others, and they say, oh yeah, you get a peace out of anything. So how do we respond to?
Yeah, so those paths, because they don't really teach hearing and glorifying the pastimes of the Lord, whatever they teach is all temporary happiness.
Yes.
It's like anesthesia, right? If you have pain, you can temporarily, they will take you to a nice resort and make you sit down and do meditation. For those 3 days, you will feel really blissful. But after you come back, when material energy starts acting on you, right? Daivihi Esha Gunamai, that energy can only be controlled by Lord. And material energy starts acting, you forget about what all you did there. So always keep the name of the Lord on the tongue. That is the only way to really be happy in this world. Right? So only when we get used to hearing the pastimes of the Lord, glorifying the Supreme Lord, that is the only true happiness. All other things are temporary.
Yes. Thank you, bro.
So those are like those are pacifications. They're not purifying, right? As
Yeah.
long as internal purity is not there,
Correct.
the material modes will still keep acting on you.
Yes. And that's a very good example.
Yeah. So it's only temporary relief. Amayo yascha bhutana
Amayo yascha bhutana
jayate yena subrata
jayate yena suvrata
tadeva hi amayam dravyam
tadeva hi amayam dravyam
napunati chikitsitam.
napunati. O good soul, does not a thing applied therapeutically cure a disease which was caused by the very same thing?
So is giving how to is talking about Yukta Vairagya principle. How so people are in the material world because they are engaged in sinful activities. But if they can use the activity, the propensity to act in the service of the Lord, that same very propensity to act will actually help to purify them. Right? So that is Rishikena, Rishikesha Sevaya, right? So using all the senses in the service of the Lord. So that is the principle. So continue, Prabhu.
For example, milk preparation sometimes cause disorder of the bowels, but the very same milk converted into curd and mixed with some other remedial ingredients cures such disorders. Similarly, the threefold miseries of material existence cannot be mitigated simply by material activities. Such activities have to be spiritualized. Just as by fire, iron is made red hot, and thereby the action of fire begins. Similarly, the material conception of a thing is at once changed as soon as it is put into the service of the Lord. That is the secret of spiritual success. We should not try to lord it over the material nature, nor should we reject material things. The best way to make the best use of a bad bargain is to use everything in relation with the Supreme Spiritual Being. Everything is an emanation from the Supreme Spirit, and by his conceivable power, his inconceivable power, he can convert spirit into matter and matter into spirit. Therefore, a material thing, so-called, is at once turned into spiritual force by the great will of the Lord.
So you converting material energy to spiritual energy by engaging everything in the service of the Lord. Just like the example here, if the milk preparations may cause disorder of bowels, but you can use one milk preparation like curd and some herbs to cure the same disorder of the bowels. So that is so basically the propensity that we have can be engaged in the service of the Lord, right? If you like cooking, you can engage that in the service of the Lord. So any propensity we have, if you want to read more, you can engage in that way also. There are so many books you can read, spiritual literature. So any propensity you have, you want to visit places, you can visit temples, right? There are so many temples all around the world. So any propensity you have, you can be engaged. There is nothing that stops you. You just need to appropriately think about the situation, and you can spiritualize your activities, all your activities. Yeah, complete.
Yeah, when everything is thus employed in the service of the Lord, we can experience that there is nothing except the Supreme Brahman.
Now you can see that everything is in connection with Brahman. Basically, the whole discussion is about Yat karoti yadasnasi, right? Whatever you do, whatever you eat, everything you do as a sacrifice for me, right? That's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Same principle in elaborate words. Narada was talking here. Evam rinam kriya yoga.
Evam rinam kriya yoga.
Sarve samsriti hetava.
Sarve samskriti hetava.
Tayevatma vinashaya.
Taivatma vinashaya.
Kalpante kalpitah pare.
Kalpante kalpitah pare.
Kalpita Hare.
Thus, when
Thus,
all a man's activity.
all
Go ahead, Mataji.
go ahead.
Thus, when all a man's activities are dedicated to the service of the Lord, those very activities which caused his perpetual bondage become the destroyer of the tree of work.
So, same principle. Let's read this part.
Fruitive work which has perpetually engaged the living being is compared to the banyan tree in the Bhagavad Gita, for it is certainly very deeply rooted. As long as the propensity for enjoying the fruit of work is there, one has to continue the transmigration of the soul from one body or place to another, according to one's nature of work. The propensity for enjoyment may be turned into the desire for serving the mission of the Lord. By doing so, one's activity is changed into karma yoga, or the way by which one can attain spiritual perfection while engaging in the work for which he has a natural tendency.
See, the principle is same, right? Everybody has the propensity to work. You cannot ask anyone to just sit down and hear forever, right? Or chant the holy name forever. It's a very tough challenge to get to that state. So while we are living in this world, while we have this attraction to working in this world, continue to use those propensities to please the Lord. If your work is not directly Krishna consciousness, use the fruit of the work, right? Fruit of the work. Whatever fruits you have, like you can donate some money or take some of your time and spend in the service of the Lord, like that.
The summary is that one has to, first of all, seek the association of pure devotees who not only are learned in the Vedanta, but are self-realized souls and unalloyed devotees of Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. In that association, the neophyte devotees must render loving service physically and mentally without reservation. This service attitude will induce the great souls to be more favorable in bestowing their mercy, which injects the neophyte with all the transcendental qualities of the pure devotees.
This is the secret. So one must, associate with pure devotees whenever there is an opportunity to hear them, to serve them, and engage in their service. Must render loving service physically and mentally without any reservation. When we do that, the devotees will be pleased. That is the secret of success.
How do you do the mentally?
Mentally means, whenever, for example, you come across an advanced devotee, you pay obeisances immediately, right? Or you fall, if it's possible, you can pay obeisances. So immediately have that respectful attitude. Sometimes we ignore. We should not have. That's the point here.
Yes. Thank you.
In mind also, we should have that. That is the beginning, right? We should not do anything mechanically. Like, for example, when you pay obeisances, you should pay with real. Actually, when you pay obeisances, you are advancing spiritually. You should see that benefit. When you see that, immediately you pay. It's one of the limbs of devotion service, right?
Yes, ma'am.
As we studied in Nectar of Devotion. So every activity in Krishna consciousness has the ability to advance us spiritually. So with that in mind, when we have the consciousness, right consciousness in everything we do, then that pleases the devotee and naturally it pleases the Lord.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes,
In yesterday's Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam class, Harilas Maharaj mentioned that this verse is extremely important and we need to get imbibe the essence of this verse.
But this verse?
Yes.
Oh, very nice. Yeah.
Basically, detachment from the sense worldly pleasures, and then attaching to Krishna's service and doing everything for Krishna in the association of the devotees.
That's true. Yeah. Everything in the association of devotees, engaging in the service to please the Lord. Yeah?
Yes.
Activities dedicated to the Lord. Yeah. So this whole theme is about how to work and engage one's senses in the service of the Lord. Right? That is how one's bondage is destroyed.
Yes.
Yadatra kriyate karma Bhagavat paritoshanam
Bhagavat paritoshanam
Jnanam yattad adhinam
Jnanam yattad adhinam hi
Bhakti yoga samanvitam.
Bhakti yoga samanvitam.
Mataji, you can read. Mataji.
Whatever work is done, whatever work is done here in this life for the satisfaction of the mission of the Lord is called Bhakti Yoga, or transcendental loving service to the Lord. And what is called knowledge becomes a concomitant factor.
So jnana will automatically come when one performs loving devotion service. Yeah, continue.
Bhakti Yoga is considered by some to be another form of karma, but factually Bhakti Yoga is above both karma and gnana. Bhakti Yoga is independent of gnana or karma. On the other hand, gnana and karma are dependent on Bhakti Yoga.
Without bhakti, even one cannot advance in jnana and karma. So they are all dependent on Bhakti Yoga. But Bhakti Yoga is an independent in itself. So at some point, a jnani needs to develop that love for the Lord and needs to have the mercy of the Lord to actually get the realization. Without the mercy of the Lord, he won't realize the Brahman, the sub-feature of the Lord. Even karma is in itself is not, karma yoga in itself is not going to give you the self-realization. One needs to ultimately understand all the fruits of my work are sacrificed for the satisfaction of the Lord. So Bhakti Yoga is needed in perfecting any of the other processes. And they're also in a ladder, right? They're not independent paths to reach God. Jnana is the lowest rung, karma is the next level, yoga, and then yoga means Ashtanga yoga, and then bhakti yoga. Through gnana, one understands the reality of the soul's existence, the soul's eternality feature. Through karma and yoga, one understands it's not just the eternality of the soul, there is the source of all the energies, which is the Paramatma aspect of it. Okay? And that is the goal of all the activities. Karma and jnana, karma and yoga gives that, Ashtanga yoga. And then one understands that there is the superior power that is a source and controller of everything. And when he becomes a devoted to that person, then he advances to the bhakti yoga. So that is the staircase method of advancing. But one can directly start the practice bhakti yoga directly under the shelter of a guru also, directly, sadhana bhakti. Doesn't need to go through all these paths. So that way it will save a lot of time, because each in itself will take a lifetime if you want the perfect life.
When work is performed, therefore, to satisfy the Lord, the performer becomes gradually purified from the material affection. This purification means attainment of spiritual knowledge.
When work is performed to satisfy the Lord, performer becomes gradually purified from the material affection. Why? Because work is done for the satisfaction of the Lord. You earned money and you gave in the service of the Lord. Then it is like you are getting in touch with fire. You just like an iron rod, slowly when it as it is in constant association with the fire, it acts like fire. So similarly, the conditioned jiva becomes purified, being in touch with the Lord through its activities. So gradually he gets purified. Yeah.
The conclusion is that a devotee engaged in the unalloyed service of the Lord, specifically in hearing and chanting of his transcendental glories, becomes simultaneously spiritually enlightened by the divine grace, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, most important is hearing and chanting. Kurvana yatra karmani Bhagavat chikshaya shakrat
Bhagavad
Bhagavad-chikshaya
Sakrat
grinanti gunanamani
Grinanti
Grinanti
Krishna yanu smaranti cha.
Krishnastiyanu smaranti cha.
See, it comes to the conclusion here. Go ahead. Please read.
While performing duties according to the order of Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one constantly remembers him, his names, and his qualities.
Yeah, so this is the ultimate instruction. One should constantly remember.
An expert
Your voice. Yeah, go ahead.
An expert devotee of the Lord can mold his life in such a way that while performing all kinds of duties, either for this or the next life, he can constantly remember the Lord's name, fame, qualities, etc. The order of the Lord is distinctly there in Bhagavad Gita. One should work only for the Lord in all spheres of life.
This is the final instruction. One should work only for Lord in all spheres of life, whatever you may be, in all, whether you're a brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, or sannyasi, any order of life, doesn't matter. This is the order of the Lord. One should. That is the only way to purify ourselves and go back to God. That's it. Yeah. Please read this.
The Lord says that no one is more dear to him than one who is always engaged in the preaching work of the Lord's name and fame all over the world. The scientific discoveries of the material world can also be equally engaged in carrying out his order. He wants the message of the Bhagavad Gita to be preached amongst his devotees.
So all the, this is the most pleasing activity for Lord. it doesn't mean that you have to give a class. You can, when you talk to your friends, family, anybody, try to bring them closer to Krishna. Lord is very, very pleased. Right? For example, when Yudhishthir Maharaj became king, Lord was extremely jubilant. The reason is, when a person like Yudhishthira Maharaj becomes the king, naturally, he would encourage everybody to act in the service of God. Right? And that way, everybody gets the opportunity to come closer to Lord Krishna and ultimately go back to Godhead. And that is the desire of the Lord. But he's more sad than us that we are here in this material world. And so, this is the most dearest activity for the Lord. So any activity we do that helps other conditioned souls to come close to Krishna, that is very, very pleasing to the Lord. And any discoveries, anything, the whole purpose is to engage in the service of the Lord. So the science and everything exists only to glorify the Lord. Yeah. So, but unfortunately, in the modern age, because of false ego, people are, considering themselves, considering that through these discoveries, they don't need to really accept the existence of God. They think that everything can be controlled by their own understanding of the nature. Right? So they try to explain everything without God. There's an unfortunate situation. That is atheistic attitude, right? So that is very wrong. That's the whole purpose of this section. Om Namo Bhagavate Tubhyam
Om Namo Bhagavate
Vasudevaya Dhimahi
Vasudevaya Dhimahi
Pradyumnaya Niruddhaya
Pradyumnaya Niruddhaya
Namah Sankarshanaya Cha.
Sankarshana.
This is the mantra of Narada Muni. Yeah. Please read.
Let us all chant the glories of Vyāsadeva along with his plenary expansions of Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and Sankarshana.
Yeah. So let us chant the glories of Vyāsadeva. So that is the ultimate benefit that's going to give the ultimate benefit to the conditioned souls in the material world. Being in touch with Lord will purify us right away. Yeah. Iti murti abhidhanena
Iti murti abhidhanena
mantra murtim amurtikam
mantra murti
yajate yajna purusham samyak darshana human. Yeah. Thus, he is the actual seer who worships in the form of the transcendental sound representation the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, who has no material form. Right? So this is basically worshipping the sound representation is recommended here. Right? Mantramurti Amurtikim. Right? Because Lord has a transcendental form, one cannot perceive the transcendental form in this world, but one can start with the sound vibration of the Lord. By starting with the sound will slowly reveal the form, pastimes, and everything, the transcendental form in the heart of the devotee. So, because Lord is transcendental, start with the name, chanting of the name. One who is actual seer who worships in the form of the transcendental sound representation of the Lord. So our present senses are all made of metal elements, and therefore they are imperfect in realizing the transcendental form of Lord Vishnu. He is therefore worshipped by sound representation by the transcendental method of chanting. Anything which is beyond the scope of experience by our imperfect senses can be realized fully by the sound representation. A person transmitting sound from a far distant place can be factually experienced. If this is materially possible, why not spiritual? Right? So we may not see the person who is creating the sound, but we can perceive the sound. Sound can transmit. Right? So similarly, sound is the source of all the forms, everything, both material and transcendental. So we'll learn that in third canto, in the instructions of Kapila Muni to his mother Devahati. How sound, from sound everything comes. That's the secret. Right? So for example, through the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, Brahma was able to expand the creation to all the material worlds. So sound is the beginning. And with sound, all the material energies are created. And while we are chanting, when we chant the holy name of the Lord, actually all the material conceptions are diluted as well through the sound itself. It's very nicely explained in one of the purports there. Prabhupada explains very nicely. I can point you to that. So similarly, the sound again expands the spiritual world to us. So sound is the way, sound is the tool for us. In the spiritual sound vibration, one can annihilate the material, annihilate material existence in our life and expand the spiritual existence. The transcendental form of eternal bliss and knowledge can be experienced by our original spiritual senses, which can be revived by chanting of the holy name. So the holy name dissolves the subtle body and helps us expand the spiritual body. Okay? So the soul right now is totally like subjugated, just like a baby in the womb. How the baby in the womb is totally locked up, right? So like that, the spiritual senses are locked up in the soul right now. But as you chant the holy name, it slowly expands. Your Swarupa will be revealed. And ultimately, when you go back to Godhead, you will exist in your real form. And you will be fully expanded in your spiritual form, just like the baby comes out, right? So, and you would perform your specific services to the Supreme Lord in the spiritual world. Such sound should be received from the transparent agency of the bona fide spiritual master, and chanting may be practiced by the direction of the spiritual master. So one should receive the instruction from spiritual master. Then it is bona fide, ultimately. That will gradually lead us nearer to the Lord. This method of worship is recommended in the Pancharatra system. Pancharatra system, which was given by Narada Muni himself, which is recognized and authorized. Just by reading the slokas like this, all of us, and reading the purports of Prabhupada, hearing the translation of Prabhupada, you don't know how much benefit you are all receiving. We're all receiving, actually. So never underestimate, the power of reading Bhagavatam slokas. This is the real essence. These are the direct words of the pure devotees, right? These are words of Narada. So understand that aspect of it. Right? Just by coming and just repeating these words, hearing the words, words of these great souls, and reading the Prabhupada's purport is immensely purifying to us.
Question on the sounds, right? This may have been discussed or might have been communicated in device Bhagavad Gita as well, but maybe I want to recollect. So Prabhu, most of the previous shlokas in Vedas starts with Om. Om sound. Om Namo Bhagavate, Om Namo Narayana. So Om has a special meaning. Maybe I kind of lost the significance, understanding of how to connect the Om to what expansion of the Lord. And that's one. And then effect of the Om, right? Many people says it's a use for meditation purpose. But what is the actual effect in the consciousness presented in the scriptures, if any? You want to-
So Om, the word literally is addressed to the absolute truth. Okay. It is more of an impersonal feature of the Lord.
Mhm.
Om is the seed sound vibration
Keep sounding.
that represents the absolute truth. It is like calling the president, right, in an official way. But the same president is a father to a child, or a mother, or an uncle, right, to somebody else in his family. Lord Krishna
Hmm.
is the unofficial home name of the same personality that is represented by Om. Right? So Om is the official name, and Lord Krishna is the unofficial name. Okay. So which one do you think is more pleasing to the Lord? When somebody calls Kana, or so that is why we chant the holy name in that way, because that is more pleasing to the Lord.
Yes.
Okay? Lord will be very pleased when he is in relation, when he's Yashodanandan, like that. When you call in relation to the devotees he loves the most. Right?
Yes.
That is also, there is an element of affection in that. Om is like, addressing a judge, honorable president, honorable judge, like that. Right? It's very respectful, but it touches the mind, but not the heart of the Lord. Right? Lord definitely reciprocates in that way also. However, it's not like intimate.
Oh, yeah. Om also, is it used in the demigods or calling anyone? Like, so for example, though Shiva is not a demigod, but it's a special position. Om Namah Shivaya, then Om Ganeshaya Namah. So Om looks like is also
Om
used.
is representing Lord Krishna there. Om is not representing Ganesha there.
Right.
So everybody is addressed with the absolute truth first.
Okay, first respect the
I
absolute
also
truth.
had this doubt, yeah. Are they all same, or I had this doubt before, long time ago.
Got it.
Yeah. So with the beginning and ending should always be absolute truth. That's why after all the puja also,
Yes.
they offer everything to Vyāsadeva, right? At the end. So Sarvarpanam Krishna, right?
Sarva Krishna.
Sarvam Krishna Arpanam. So that they say, and then every mantra they begin with addressing the Lord, and then because the first thing should be the more important thing. It's just like when addressing Krishna, we address Radharani, because in that case, Radharani is more important than addressing Krishna. But in general, any demigod, you start with Om.
Yes. Thank you. Very good.
Imam Swanigamam Brahman
Imam Swargamam Brahman
Brahman
Avetya Mad Anushtitam
Avetya Anustitam
Adan Me Jnanama Aishwaryam
Adhanve Aishwaryam
Swasmin Bhavam Chakeshava.
Swasmin Bhavam Keshavaha.
O Brahmana, thus by the Supreme Lord Krishna, I was endowed first with the transcendental knowledge of the Lord as inculcated in the confidential parts of the Vedas, then with the spiritual opulences, and then with the intimate loving service.
So he started with chanting the glories of the Lord. First he gained the knowledge of the Lord, right? In the confidential part of the verse. Then with the spiritual opulences, so then he was endowed with the spiritual opulences of the Lord, and then ultimately loving service to the Lord. Right? So this is the most highest achievement, loving service, more than spiritual opulences. So for example, Narada Muni has spiritual body. He can travel anywhere in existence, both material and spiritual worlds. Right? His body is transcendental. Yeah. First he gained the knowledge, then he gained the spiritual opulences, and then he finally achieved the loving service to the Lord. Yeah.
Communion with the Lord by transmission of the transcendental sound is not different from the whole spirit of Lord Sri Krishna.
So what this means is, one can approach the Lord just by chanting his holy name. Yeah, then read this one directly.
The Lord reveals his identity gradually to one who has unflinching faith both in the spiritual master and in the Lord.
So one can get the revelation of God only through the help of a bona fide spiritual master. Right? Without that, one cannot directly jump to Krishna without taking the help of anybody intermediary. For example, you don't know president. Can you ever get in touch with president without going through his personal assistant? Is it ever possible? If it is not possible to president, how can you directly impress the Supreme Lord? Right? So that is very simple to understand. Some people ask, why do I need a guru? Can I not directly worship the Lord and go there? They don't want to basically submit themselves in the service of devotees. Right? Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I have a question in the reciting of Om. So I was looking at the verse, Bhagavad Gita 8th chapter 13th verse. That it says, after being situated in this yoga practice and vibrating the sacred syllable Om, the supreme combination of letters, if one thinks of the supreme personality of Godhead and quits his body, he will certainly reach the spiritual planets. So, and then there is another verse, Antakali Chamamyeva, right, Prabhu? So in that, Krishna says that if one thinks about me at the time of death, then he will certainly reach the spiritual planets. So how do we understand both of this, Prabhu? Because in one it says, Krishna says, you need to think about Krishna and then vibrate the sacred syllable Om. And then in the other, you need to just think about the Lord at the time of death.
So when he says Om, it also means Krishna, right? Om is not different from Krishna, just like we discussed. Om is an official name, designation for Krishna. It's just like calling a president, right? Honorable president, honorable judge. Actually, honorable judge has a name, personal name of his own, right? So that personal name is revealed in the scriptures is Krishna. Krishna is the source of all incarnation. He is the absolute truth. There is nothing superior to Krishna. Right? So that's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. And the official address to him, like there are official way to address the Lord as well, just like we do in the material world. There is an official way to address a judge or a president. So that is Om. So both verses mean the same. Actually, when he says Om, Om literally means Krishna. So for devotees, for other paths, they may not like to, address the absolute truth as Krishna. They would go with the Om approach. They like the Om approach, addressing the Lord as Om. Right? So
Okay,
for devotees, they want to address absolute truth as,
Question. So in the same context, so that means, yeah, Om means the Lord's energy only, but you added one point there. It's not, it's impersonal, or are they addressing the physical form of the Lord?
Which one? I didn't understand.
Om. So when you say Om, so it's energy of the Lord, but is it specifically addressing the impersonal form of the Lord or physical form of the Lord?
So Om can refer to any form. It could be. It depends on the person who is doing it. If I'm a jnani, when I call Om, I'm actually referring to the Brahman feature of the Lord. if I'm a devotee, when I say Om Namo Vasudevaya, right? So, or then I'm actually addressing the personality of God. Yeah. So it depends on the person who is trying to do. Om refers differently based on the individual who is doing that.
Okay.
He's addressing Om. So is that clear? Sharanam Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu.
Can you mute the iPhone, Prabhuji?
Some sound is coming. No?
Some iPhone. It's written iPhone.
Yeah. Twamapi adhabra srutavishrutam vibho samapyate yena vidam vibhushitam prakyahi dukhay muhurarditamanam sanklesha nirvanamushanti nanyata. Yeah. Anybody?
Please, therefore, describe the Almighty Lord's activities, which you have learned by your vast knowledge of the Vedas, for that will satisfy the hankerings of great learned men and at the same time mitigate the miseries of the masses of common people who are always suffering from material pangs. Indeed, there is no other way to get out of such miseries.
So it's very clear, from all these instructions, if you are engaged in the service, use your senses in the service of the Lord. So the instructions of the focus should be on hearing as much as possible. That is the only way to mitigate the sufferings of material existence. Right? There is no other way. There is no other way. You can do anything. You have nice home, nice this, nice kids, everything, but still you'll never be happy until you are continuously hearing. That is the only way to satisfy the soul. The soul, spiritual in nature, it can only be satisfied with spiritual inputs, continuous spiritual inputs. Okay? Otherwise, it will be miserable. So the only way is to continuously hear the Lord's, glories, activities. That is the only way to mitigate the miseries of the masses. Yeah.
Sri Narada Muni from practical experience definitely asserts that the prime solution of all problems of material work is to broadcast very widely the transcendental glories of the Supreme Lord.
Yeah. So Narada Muni says just broadcast the glories of the Lord. That is the prime solution for all problems. Yeah, this we know, right? There are 4 types of people who approach the Lord, and there are 4 types of people who do not, will never will never come to the Lord, right? So described in 7th chapter, right? So yeah, so focus on these 4 kinds of people: Ardho, Ardhardi, Jnani, right? And the wise man. Right? So those people one can focus. So Sri Narada ji advised Vyāsadeva to describe the glories of the Lord, just to do good to all 8 classes of men, both good and bad. Right? Everybody can, because hearing story is a propensity of everyone, whether it is a devotee or non-devotee. And so just compose this literature glorifying the glories of the Lord, and it will benefit all the 8 classes of people. So Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is not meant for a particular class of men or sect. It is for the sincere soul who actually wants his own welfare and peace of mind. So basically, this is book open for everybody, benefits everyone. And it is full of compositions of the glories of the devotees of the Lord and glories of the Lord himself. So this concludes the last. So Narada Muni gave his own personal example of how his life, how he became a devotee and how he was transformed in the association of great devotees, and through their mercy, how he achieved perfection. And also he gave his final instructions on basically how to work, and when you work, how you can sacrifice everything for the satisfaction of the Lord, and how his composition should be completely filled with the descriptions of transcendental descriptions of the Lord. So if that happens, then that will really help the mass of the people, because that's the only remedy. There is no other way that people can really get any sense of peace and happiness in this material existence. It is only through hearing the glories of the Lord the conditioned soul can be satisfied in the material world. So now Narada Muni and Vyasadeva's conversation further continues. We'll just read through first 4 verses from 6th chapter. We'll begin this. So this is conversation between Narada and Vyasadeva again, continuing. But here Vyasadeva, the disciple, actually inquires some more details about Narada, because he explained in brief about his story of how he became a devotee. So here Vyasadeva is going to inquire some more details about that. Suta Vacha
Suta Vacha
Vacha
Evam Nishamya Bhagavan
Evam Nishamya Bhagavan
Devarsher Jnana Karmacha
Devarshe Charma Karmacha
Bhuya Paprichatam Brahman
Bhuya Prachatam Brahman
Vyasa Satyavati Sutta.
Vyasa Satyavati Sutta.
I'll read, Prabhuji. Suta said, O Brahmanas, thus hearing all about Sri Narada's birth and activities, Vyāsadeva, the incarnation of God and son of Satyavati, inquired as follows.
Vyasa Uvacha
Vyasa
Vikshubhir Vipravasite
Vipravashite
Vijnana Destribhistava
Vijnana Deshtribhistava
Vartamano Vayasahi Atye
Vartamano Vayasahitye
Tatah Kim Akarod Bhavan.
Tatah Akarod Bhavan. Srila Vyasadeva said, what did you, Narada, do after the departure of these great sages who had instructed you in scientific transcendental knowledge before the beginning of your present birth?
So they inquired, okay, what happened after? We heard about your beginning, that you were completely transformed in just the 2 months of association of these great Bhakti Vedantas. But what have you done right after that?
Yes.
Can you read this one line?
Yes. This desire to inquire from the spiritual master is an essential factor to the progressive path. This process is technically known as Sadharma Pricha.
Sadharma Pricha. So this inquiry is important. One should not just blindly accept a guru and not think about it. One has to inquire and question spiritual knowledge. Swayambhuva Kaya Vritya Vartitam Te Param Vaya
Vartitam Te Param Vaya
Katam Chedam Udashakshi
Katham Chedam Udashakshi
Kale Prapte Kalevaram.
Kale Prapte Kalevaram.
O son of Brahma, how did you pass your life after initiation? And how did you attain this body, having quit your old one in due course?
So he's inquiring about what did you do after your initiation and how your body is now changed to the one that we see right now. Yeah, continue, Prabhu.
Sri Narada Muni in his previous life was just an ordinary maid servant's son. So how he became so perfectly transformed into a spiritual body of eternal life, bliss, and knowledge is certainly important. Srivasdeva desired him to disclose the facts for everyone's satisfaction.
Prakalpa Vishayam Etam
Prakalpa Vishayam Etam
Smritim Te Munisattama
Smritinte Munisattamam
Nahyesha Yavadha Pala
Nahesha Vyavadhatpala
Sharva Nirakrita.
Yesha Sarva Nirakrita.
O great sage, time annihilates everything in due course. So, how is it that the subject matter which happened prior to this day of Brahma is still fresh in your memory, undisturbed by time?
So his disciple is asked, Guru, it's been like one full day of Brahma. How is it that you're able to still have all of this in your memory? So that's a surprise for him. He's asking. Basically, Narada Muni had a spiritual body, and so he was able to remember.
As spirit is not annihilated even after the annihilation of the material body, so also spiritual consciousness is not annihilated. Sri Narada developed the spiritual consciousness even when he had his material body in the previous kalpa.
So Narada Muni has actually developed full spiritual consciousness. Once one develops that, he will continue to remember the previous existence. Yeah, so we'll end here. 1 hour 15 minutes. So this is the next section when Narada Muni starts answering the questions. Okay. So thank you everyone. So we just discussed about Narada's final instructions and further inquiries from Vyāsadeva about the couple of aspects. Okay. So what did you do after the association of Bhaktivedantas, and how are you able to remember all your past? I want to know more about that. That was the inquiry of Vyāsadeva. So now Narada Muni will further continue his story, explain about what has happened, how his mother passed away, and how he took shelter of the Lord in the next set of verses. We'll continue the study in the next week. Okay, thank you very much. Any questions or any realizations or any comments?
Can you, Prabhuji, Prabhuji, thank you, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, can you please summarize Narada's final instructions to Srila Vyāsadeva, Prabhuji?
So final instruction, I mean, in the last section, that's what we are discussing. He said that you have given the Vedic literature and sparsely discussed about the glories of the Supreme Lord, past tense. But you haven't given one composition where transcendental glories of the Lord are fully thoroughly described. So that's what you should do, and that will really alleviate the miseries of the material existence for common people. That was his final instruction. And he said that the only way for the living entities of the material world is to engage all their senses in the service of the Supreme Lord. Everything that they do should be for the satisfaction of the Lord. That is the only way of work. And he also emphasized the importance of sound vibration. Through glorification of the Lord, one actually can overcome the material existence. So these are the prime instructions in the last few verses of the last chapter. And now inquiries come again from Vyāsadeva. We'll discuss that next week.
So you mentioned that Shravanam is the main key for all the miseries, right, Prabhu? If you have to keep hearing Harikatha.
Hearing and
glorify.
Chanting, yeah. Chanting is the main, yeah. Continuously keep consciousness on, repeating the names of the Lord.
Like Shravanam and Kirtana.
So,
Right. Okay.
So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
See you again next week.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Very well done.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.